Yeah. Now, the chutney company obviously has done a nice job with their space on the front, but my understanding is, I think 30% of the building lacks a roof entirely, and then the commercial condos at the back, I mean, they're adequate, but I thought if, you know, in this current environment where it seems there are different buckets of money available for different types of things, and you said it correctly, revitalization, at least just explore what options might be out there to do something with that, because it's squarely in my voting district, and it just kind of hangs over me as something that shouldn't be ignored.
Yeah, no harm looking into it.
Okay. All right.
Can we get the annual well stuff off the budget if we do that?
Yeah, so the cost for the well is electric, and that's troubled me this year. It failed a couple times. I was out there because Ricky was in South Carolina. I was out there troubleshooting the well, which is not a good use of your money.
You upset the engineer.
I'm so sorry. I know it's just that one budget item we see every year that's like, I don't know what this is doing here, but it's here again. So if we can get the well off the books.
We went through, before the county purchased the property, we went through a voluntary remediation program with the state because the groundwater's contaminated, or was, impacting the church next door. So now the well was drilled up gradient to provide water to the existing building, including Turner Foods, and the church. But that was a long time ago. But the
Yes, sir.
paperwork's like that thick. So it's $300 a year in electric, or trying to figure out that much paperwork, and we've just been paying $300 in electric. And that's where we stand.
It might be easier.
So until the well stops working, which is 400 feet deep.
Ooh,
I forgot that part.
So I'm especially on board if we can figure out that part of the equation.
So that's in the
Well
pile
noted.
somewhere,
Well
but
noted.
yep, in the pile.
comes to the top of the pile when it stops working and I get a call from Turner Foods.
Take care, Turner.
I guess they would know before the church did.
All right,
Thank you, Gary.
any other matters? I have a couple of items. I sent everyone a note that I had received a call from Delegate Weber this morning about the redistricting statewide and the potential for Rappahannock County to basically get away from Fauquier and go more into the Culpeper, Madison, Orange kind of world. And he was just really letting us know that this potential is out there and that there's public comment period. Should we want to write something online on one of those links, you can actually go online and submit a comment. We could, I guess, do something as a board, whatever. I just wanted to make sure that everybody was on the same page and understood that this is coming. His concern was, where do we have the most community alignment? Is it with Fauquier because of LFCC and the governor's school and that kind of thing? Or where do we see ourselves in the future?
It would be, I think, less disruptive to leave us with Fauquier. That's my personal opinion.
And as Mr. Monty noted earlier, it's unlikely that Rappahannock County will be split because we're only 7,000 people. And because we're only 7,000 people, we're probably rounding error regardless of where we go. But we have to make a whole somewhere. So the current iterations, A, 7, B, 6, whatever they are, show us with Culpeper and Orange and Madison. Culpeper, well,
More
Culpeper, Madison, part
Little
of
bit
Page, Culpeper, Madison, part of Orange, for House, or for Assembly. Now, Senate's a little bit different.
So what action do we need to take?
Well, in my mind, we could all individually write something, should we have an opinion, and it's an individual opinion, not an opinion of the board, or we could come up with an opinion of the board that we want to put in the comments, just to make sure they understand what we think is best for Rappahannock County.
They might recognize them and change the map, which will then go to the General Assembly, possibly, if they can make a decision. And then the General Assembly may or may not accept it. And if they don't, the Supreme Court's going to figure it out.
Yeah, I think we haven't been aligned with that section in the state, the General Assembly for decades. We've always been aligned with Fauquier and Warren, and then Page once, but, I mean, Andy Guess was our delegate forever. And then, we were redistricted, and
The maps have changed drastically from A1 to A7, and so who knows what A8 will be.
Okay.
So if we want, as a board, I need to know, and I'd be willing to work with Mr. Whitson on writing something up that's official from the board. If we want to do it individually, that's fine as well.
probably should be under a vote that we take so that we're in unison, but I could put forth a motion that we send some sort of documentation, a letter that we'd like to remain, with Fauquier, if that's acceptable.
Fine with me.
Is that a second, sir?
That'll be a second. Yeah.
Okay.
I just think it's just less disruptive.
I think that's the best way to
It
look
was
at
a real
it.
pain when we were over in the mountain. I mean, because our votes didn't count over here. 'Cause they had,
All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The next thing in my mind is just the broadband discussion. I know this challenge process is, I've been talking to a lot of people by text or messenger or phone. The ones that I know are in areas that are most likely not receiving support, but having one company or another saying that they do. And that's been great, but I don't know any other way other than the Rap News and Mad Rap getting involved, sharing with friends on whatever way you can do it. The process, from what I am looking at, is DHCD will make a determination if the project area is unserved within 30 business days from the date of posting the proposed project. And the submission was September 14th. Is it your understanding that they,
Actually, that stems from an application made, or petition made by All Points months ago.
Okay.
So they're off the rails on their guidelines.
okay. I did see somewhere October 5th was the deadline for trying to get people to go on the website.
No, so the survey will be
challenge.
open for a long period of time.
Right.
This is the utility leverage challenge process. And All Points filed a petition months ago, basically stating these areas are unserved. Allow anybody else to come forward and work that out. Was supposed to be before VADI even happened, but I think it got delayed. So that's the process, and there was a challenge. And so certain companies said that they do currently serve some areas of the county, and All Points is gathering data to confirm or refute that information for this challenge process, which is not even part of the body process.
And so it's really just I was talking to Ms. Donahue about it, it's not a completeness exercise, it's really a sampling to
It is
just
sampling.
find somebody here, somebody there who says, like in my case, I jumped on and I said, oh, yeah, you get CenturyLink high-speed internet. Well, I don't have CenturyLink landlines at work. So trust me, I don't have CenturyLink internet.
The way these are the petitioner had to put in a shapefile. And that shapefile looks similar to
Yeah.
the map that you saw from All Points. The challengers have to put in point-specific data addresses. And that's why the survey is a little bit different for anybody who takes it. So if you put your address in and a challenger said they serve you, it'll pop up and tell you that.
Yeah, that's what happened.
And then you can say, no, they
No.
don't. Or yes, they do. And I did it for my house and said, yeah, I get Comcast.
And I said, yeah, Comcast said they'd come to me, but it cost $40,000.
Right.
So,
And you have a place to put that in the comments section, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So the timeline for the All Points website,
It'll stay active
Okay.
and continue gathering information. its input to this challenge process will close
Okay.
today, tomorrow.
All right, and then we'll get, well, I'm gonna reach out to Brandon with the Regional Commission and try to find out when we're going to hear more information from the regional group, and to make sure that this board is kept up to date with what the expectation is, because it's not clear to me what to expect next from the Regional Commission. So I want to make sure that we're all on the same page with what to expect and when, hopefully when.
You'll share that information with us?
Absolutely. Yeah. The last message I sent, basically saying we need to be kept up to date, I haven't heard anything since, but I'll just be a squeaky wheel. Try to make sure that we hear as soon as the other 7 counties, I think we're one of 8, are hearing as well.
Well, we're on the subject, did all the board members have an opportunity to read the body application? Or at least
No.
review it?
As far as I understand it, the body application was not available to be read until it hit the DHCD website. And I haven't heard from anybody else in any other county that they could see it ahead of time.
Oh, I've seen it. Y'all don't have it?
Now, you can see it, correct?
But have y'all studied it?
No.
So what I said earlier today really didn't register?
Where did you see it?
Forget who sent it to me, but I've got a copy.
It's on the DHCD
You
website.
can go to their website and see it.
There's links, people have been sending back and forth all around the county. We agreed to help with easements, according to that body application.
I think that was part of the conversation. I know we never took a vote that specifically said.
I
we
never
will
heard
help you.
that, I never heard that. But there's another part in there and that's gonna be part of the questions that I'm gonna bring forward, next week. Fauquier, All Points has had an agreement with Fauquier separately for some time. They applied to be part of this regional initiative. And if you look in there at the 12-month installation fee caveat, it plainly states that the 12 months starts as soon as there is service in the region, at any part of the region. Fauquier's already 6 months involved with All Points. If they were to get service soon, and they were the first one to get service, and then the body agreement, he has asked for 36 months to do the build out. We're looking at a possibility that we're 2 years or so out when they build our system. We'll be 2 years behind that 12 months. So what is going to happen with that $199 installation fee? That's going to be one of my questions.
Good question.
It is a good question. And maybe there's some room for adjustment there.
Well,
I mean,
if not, then we fall back on what he told Clark County, that it would be cost plus 10% after the 12 months. Well, cost plus 10% is what? Comcast told me $4,300 to hook up to mine.
yeah,
So-
and if you've got, as far as I'm concerned, if you've got questions, I'd submit them to me if you want, and I'll
Well, I'll
have
do
the
that. I'm gonna
answers.
do that publicly though, because I think the public should know what we're talking about on their
I
behalf.
just don't want to delay your information if we can help it. Anything else on broadband? Okay. Just want to remind everybody that the Rappahannock Regional Commission annual meeting is this Thursday evening. If you've registered, great. If you haven't, but you're still interested, I would think you still can. I don't know that for a fact. I meant to ask Patrick while he was here. And I've never attended, but it sounds like it's a good event.
Okay, can we still go?
I'm sure you can. I don't know the answer, but.
All right. Any other matters presented by the board? Hearing none?
I'm sure I
No, don't adjourn.
move that we adjourn.
No,
No,
you're continuing
we're continuing.
We are?
The 18th.
to the 18th.
Oh, I thought the 18th was oh, that's right, we tacked on.
Yes.
Oh,
All right.
all right, so no motion needed.
No, someone's going to move to continue the meeting to 7 o'clock on October 18th.
Okay, I will change
In the
that.
Here
courthouse.
Okay, I move that we continue the meeting to the 18th, 7 PM in the courthouse. Sorry, I'm worn out, I didn't keep up.
That's a great
Second.
motion.
Second.
We have a second? Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, everyone.
We should discuss it at a meeting that was and that's my mistake, because I was thinking it would be ARPA funding, but it's still COVID relief, money related appropriations, and I just thought like last year we should do that kind of all at once, and if all at once means all fire companies at once for this type of appropriation, then so be it. But no, that what I meant was we should have a discussion about what each interested party might need so that we can see the whole picture in one place. So, I mean, I think the end result's the same. It's just, and I thought we could then.
So is this, by the way, is this for the, because Sperryville's got two companies. Is
This
this
is
for,
fire.
this is for the fire, okay. So, you know, we value all of our volunteers.
That's true.
And there is a certain amount of jealousy amongst the different companies. And so I rather than, you know, just take care of one arbitrarily first, I just think it might cause resentment for the other companies that also work just as hard to protect our citizens. And so, yeah, let's,
Well, I think you're right to a point there, Mr. Parrish. I don't mean to interrupt you, but we've already done a whole lot for Company 9 up in Chester Gap. We've got $140,000 a year in spending every year up there for paid personnel.
Well, that's not for.
so you're bringing that up as a.
I'm
as
just
a-
saying,
yeah.
we've managed to make the money flow for other companies on a
Right,
case by
for that
case
one,
basis.
yeah, right.
But
And,
we're
you know, of
staying
course,
in their building,
I know
I would
you're
agree
looking
with
out
that,
for
but
after
it's not
Sperryville.
staying.
I'm thinking about Castleton, you know, and so it's, you know, why didn't Castleton get something here?
Well, I just hope we can get it together, if we can all do it on the
Yeah.
18th.
Okay,
About the 18th, either earlier than the other group meets or 7:30?
Do we think that other group will have a long meeting?
Don't think so.
I'd be
But I
inclined
tend
for
to be surprised.
7:30.
The other group is meeting at 5:30,
I'd be
so
intend to schedule for 7 or 7:30.
7:30. 7? 7 o'clock? Does that work for your schedule, sir?
the other one's at 5:30?
Yes.
7 o'clock on the 18th. So I would recommend that we all reach out to our departments as well directly to let them know that we're having this conversation.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Number 2, let's see, addendum proposed purchasing ordinance amendment.
Oh, as I was going through a number of recent procurement items and actually most recently reviewing the credit card policy that the treasurer had a couple suggestions for, I started pulling on that string and it kept pulling and pulling and got to the purchasing ordinance, which I've wanted to recommend changes to for a while, but they were just adjusted before I got here.
Bless you.
So I went ahead and just one evening and early morning just typed up what I think would be appropriate for changes. Includes tracking more closely the Code of Virginia and the clear distinction between professional services versus goods and non-professional services and making a distinction there on how you make those purchases. Providing us the maximum flexibility that the Code of Virginia allows for our small purchasing, where we're allowed to make our own rules that are different than the onerous competitive seal bidding that follows exactly what the Code of Virginia says. And basically what the code says for goods and non-professional services, you can make your own rules for under 200,000, or you can make your own rules for under 80,000 for professional services. Right now, your ordinance says 25,000. So that means if we have something that's 26,000, technically we're supposed to have a sealed competitive bid with a due date that the bids come in that are blind and nobody sees them. until the bid opening date, and it's really just cumbersome. We can provide different levels of purchasing, similar to what we have now. Below a certain threshold, you need at least, you need 2 bids, can be oral, and, as many as you can. And then above the next is a informal request for bids where you need written bids, but there's not a fixed bid due date. You just collect them as they come in, and you're not to share the information. And then above that next level is a sealed bid, but not quite as onerous as what the Code of Virginia would require and all that. And then professional services, similar, but only professional services are to be selected based on how the services fit your need. And you can work through the competitive negotiation process, which is outlined in the Code of Virginia. The proposal I put up also tracks more plainly the language that allows cooperative procurement, which, according to the state code, we can definitely use that, but our local ordinance is silent. And so it's what I'll make it clear that we can use cooperative procurement. Like when Fauquier bids out a commodity, we can buy off of their contract. It makes clear that sole or single source and emergency procurement, the Code of Virginia allows that, but there's nothing in our local ordinance that says that we can do those things for under $25,000. So if it's not in our local policy, technically, our local policy is supposed to cover everything below $25,000 now, and I'm suggesting under $200,000. So those things should be mimicked in our local ordinances there in the state. So you can do a sole source over 25, but you can't maybe do it under 25 because the way our ordinance is written right now. Similarly, then recommending for purchase award to look at those numbers again. And this is up to the board. Right now, awards, we've had a few tonight, have to go to the board if they're over 10,000. I'm recommending 25,000, and whatever that number is, I think it needs to line up with these tiered levels of bidding. And then make it clear that the purchasing agent can't make awards unless there's been an appropriation of adequate dollar value previously made by the board.
So it's a guard.
It's not in the ordinance now, and it should be. And that we should have a set of standard terms and conditions, but it's not clear now, and it basically makes it clear that we need to have that.
So that mechanically means that the governing body would always be on notice of a pending action that you'd be authorized to make that purchase, but we would still know about it because of the appropriation requirement, correct?
Yeah. Now, the boards will want to find that balance of where you want to have to hold things to the monthly cycle so that they come before you, and where that they can just be handled by staff. And that's where the board will have to be comfortable with this. My recommendation is for this draft to go to the Rules Committee, have the Rules Committee look it over, maybe review the wording, review the numbers, which are linked throughout, and then have that body bring a recommendation back to the board for future action.
I'd make a motion that we refer this purchasing ordinance agreement changes to the Rules Committee for consideration at their meeting this month, and encourage my fellow board members, if they have any feedback or strong feelings about the language, to submit their concerns in advance of that meeting.
I'll second Ms. Smith's motion.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Our meeting is the third Thursday of the month in the morning.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Back to
The
back to where we
I
began.
won.
Yeah.
I1, board committee reports. Building committee.
Building Committee. The Building Committee met and discussed ongoing projects, but we were missing a valuable piece of information that came in a few days later, was the roof survey of all the buildings that are badly in need of roofs, or maybe not so much badly needed. We're still going through that process of reviewing that. I think it was 96 pages, something like
Big
that.
one.
And we should have, we'll be meeting this month, the same day as the Rules Committee, probably, and we will probably have some questions that we'll give to Mr. Vaughn and maybe Milner and the roofing people. So we've got quite a few things that we're working on, and as soon as we get something concrete or sheet metal, we'll bring it back before the board.
I'll just add to that, to distribute this roof report, which was large, it is posted to board docs in the library, and it's tagged as a featured item, so board members can go there and
Thank you.
citizens go there and find a good internet pipe and then download.
It's quite informative. It's,
I have received a very preliminary draft of masonry report with a lot of holes in it, just to, I guess, show us that it was almost done. And so I expect that will be done before the next meeting, building committee meeting.
Thank you. Recreational Facilities.
We had a great meeting earlier this month. We have a meeting coming up on the 14th. Highlights of the previous meeting were some discussions with the Park Foundation about some playground equipment that may be a gift forthcoming for the park. And then, of course, we had a discussion about the Dark Skies program and the what that program will look like and reinstating that program for the future. We had a good discussion with Rick Kohler there as a representative of our LEP, and there were a few details to work through, and I expect he'll be back this month, and we should be able to bring something forward, get that going again.
Excellent.
Dr. Joyce Harmon, sounds like she'll be in charge of the Dark Skies programs. So, sounds like a great solution. And they are having I think it's called Better Together Day, put on by the Park Foundation on the 16th, and it'll be like a barbecue and family day.
Is it Path Foundation or?
I thought it was the Park Foundation.
It's the Park Foundation is sponsoring. I don't know if they have.
Oh,
they may have a
I'm sorry.
grant as well from the Path
Okay,
Foundation.
sorry.
So but there's a sign up over at the
Yeah,
park.
I was-
I did notice that there was music. I hope they talked to the neighbors.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, boy.
but I know there'll be barbecue and I think family activities, so should be a nice day at the park.
What day is that again?
The 16th.
What's the event?
It's
Called Better Together.
Yeah, I think it's Path funded is maybe what I was
That
thinking.
sounds correct,
Yeah.
now that you mention it.
It's like healthy communities and all
And the
that.
playground equipment was a Path grant as well, I believe, through the foundation.
Good. And Fodder Stack was a huge success, I think. It was a lot of
It
fun.
was a beautiful day.
It couldn't have been prettier, I don't think.
I know there were over 300 pre-registrations.
Yeah, and not that many ran it, but it was
It was over 300.
Yeah.
300, it was a good turnout.
right. Like I think a lot, not as many people registered as ran it. I mean, not as many people ran it as registered.
And I think that may be typical, I'm not sure, but they rolled it forward, I think, from previous year registrations.
Yeah.
So I think they probably didn't have clear understanding of who was gonna be here this
Right,
time around
exactly.
because of that. But it was great. And
Mr. Parrish ran it in what,
he got
35
a
minutes?
cup. He got an
Guy got
award.
first in my age group.
Yeah.
Way to go! Congratulations.
Only one other guy old enough to.
Good job,
That-
Chris.
Enough to do it.
Good
so-
job.
That's the key. You hang around long enough, and then you start winning your age group finally.
It beat every one of us.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
then the first section of the first section of panels are up over at the park. So if you haven't seen them, that's added a nice element of privacy too. So I think that's been completed since last month. If you haven't seen it yet, that was a great cooperative effort, and the neighbors came over and volunteered, as did a lot of the members of the park board.
Excellent. Okay, Public Safety Committee.
Public Safety Committee normally meets quarterly, and we're scheduled to meet tomorrow night, yeah, the first Tuesday. So we'll be meeting tomorrow evening. We had a special called meeting last week, and the only topic of discussion as advertised for the special meeting was the insurance requirements for the volunteer companies. And there was a brief discussion, motion was made and it carried, I think unanimously, that the association and county staff and perhaps yourself, Madam Chair, will be meeting and working on some of those arrangements. So I think it was the shortest meeting I've ever been in. It was less than 15 minutes
They
long.
did sneak the other agenda item on to recommend that the board adopt a resolution for Ms. Ennis.
That's right, I'm sorry. You're absolutely correct.
Rules Committee.
Well, I met with Mr. Curry and refined the options that you saw today in terms of adding the daytime option for public hearings and also how to formally recognize citizens or former committee members for their input.
As was mentioned earlier by Ms. Smith, the AV capabilities in the Visitor Center, those are up and running, and Ms. Maskus had access to them for the weekend events, and so we will now be able to make use of them for meetings as well.
Planning Commission.
Planning Commission met, and it was a pretty full slate. These were preliminary reviews under that Planning Commission system. There were, not surprising, 3 tourist home applications, 1 Chester Gap, 1 back in Old Hollow, and then 1 down off of Yancey at the Jenkins Orchard. 2 of those 3 were recommended to the Board of Zoning Appeals with a recommendation for approval. I believe I'm correct, the Chester Gap tourist home was scheduled for a public hearing for a couple of reasons, including the applicant wasn't present for our preliminary review. There was also an accessory dwelling unit special use permit application that was for the Turner family who own Virginia Chutney, and that was pretty straightforward. And then finally, there was a kennel/dog training center, as I was explained to Mr. Parrish earlier. It's really, that's the category in our use table. It's really application for a dog training center down there on the corner of what is it, Richmond Road and
Forest Grove Road.
in Forest Grove Road, and very, very impressive presentation by the applicant. And I know I'm planning on heading down there to look at the property, as are other members of the Planning Commission. And so we scheduled that one for a public hearing, and that falls under a special use permit.
That was one that Ms. Summers and I kind of had to do a bit of a dive on because they wanted to do we don't have a dog training center, but we have a kennel, so basically, which allows training dogs. And so we decided it was a kennel that didn't board overnight and seemed to fit the use. It had all the same impacts to neighbors, except for just not at nighttime. So that's the way it's proceeding through the permitting process.
So we're going to have, our next Planning Commission meeting is on October 20th, so there will be at least two public hearings that night, one on the dog training center and the other on the Chester Gap tourist home, so.
Thank you.
Yep.
The Fire Levy Board, I think we're done for the year.
The meetings are set for February and March.
Something like that. All right, let's see. Treasurers, county administrator building.
Mr. Curry, I had a question on our cash position for this fiscal year. It looks like we're up, 700,000 of the difference, I guess, would be ARPA money, but we're up much more than that. I was just curious if there's an additional explanation for our healthy cash position compared to even last year.
Well, you will, yes, 716,000 is the ARPA money that's sitting in your bank. But you will also be receiving your audit in December. And as is the law, you won't overspend your revenue. So that adds to it. All those things come together. You're continuing to see the balance from CARES money that was worked through the legal process. So that your low point of the cash curve this year was $6.4 million. And you're positioned to invest that in your capital needs, which there are many.
Yep.
Not all of that, because you need to keep cash flow, but and then also the shape of the curve. You look at 18, 19, 20.
Yep.
And that shape predates the accelerated cash collection from the treasurer's office. So the bills were out just a little bit earlier this year than last year.
Yep.
And as that flows through, you're getting the revenue in before it goes out the door. And that makes a big difference on the amount of money without changing the tax rate or anything, the amount of that cash that you can actually put to work for yourself.
So you're saying the 6.4 in August should be our lowest position based on
Yeah, it will be.
on historical cash flow
Yes.
patterns. Okay.
Unless there's some very weird
Yep.
payout
We're already
next month,
trending
which I'm
up.
not aware of.
Okay.
The revenues next month will be strong, and then after that, as we approach the deadline in December, your revenues will really start to crank up.
And what was in 20? Let's see. I'm just going all the way down. Wow. 2016, we had no cash on hand.
We borrowed from the bank
Right.
For
for
multiple years, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, and Miss Nick.
So this will help when it comes to, you won't have to borrow as much money when you do a capital project.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the meals and lodging tax, I was really surprised at how well that is looking, given that Tula's isn't in business and, that kind of thing, but
Well,
Miss
that
Nick-
wouldn't go to us anyway.
Tulips wouldn't.
That's
This is
true.
a good
Did you plant
segue.
that on purpose to upset me?
The General Assembly last year did us another favor, and I didn't realize the extent to which that favor was made, but I thought it was positive, and it still is. But instead of the lodging tax being on the cost of the room, it is now on the total price, including it, if you rent a movie or whatever, it's all that, plus any booking fees. And if there are intermediaries, Airbnb, VRBO, they now must collect the tax. Well, so we will be getting money from them. Great, we'll get a little bit more money because it's on their booking fees. But we lose completely the visibility of who's paying that tax. They will not share the information. Maybe they say it's private. So, Ms. Graham, Ms. Nick and I, and we've talked about this in the past, about trying to get them, now they have to do it. Have looked at it. The code also allows us to create a short-term rental registry and charge a fee for that registry to make up for the paperwork to keep track of it. The recommendation from staff probably will be to, when we amend the ordinance to recognize the intermediary and all that, is to create this registry, because that will be the only way our commercial revenue will know if the short-term rental providers are actually permitted.
But how will we be able to?
We will never reconcile between the money we get from
That's what-
VRBO and
That's
the
what I was gonna
registry.
ask. It's impossible to
But
reconcile.
we'll know if they are on the registry, we can probably ask them for their information of who their intermediary is. Then we'll know that they're in a bucket. And if they're not with an intermediary, they have to pay us directly.
Wow.
So it's gonna be a bit of a mess. But
But,
you know,
yeah.
state's here to help.
But we won't be able to, whatever aggregate amount we get from those agencies, we'll never be able to reconcile it to things like 10 tourist homes, times 10 nights, times 4%. I mean, there's no way. I mean, we can't do it at that level anyway,
No, and they will not break it down based on their
but data.
provider,
Wow.
even though so
I don't know if you.
that actually went into that law started September 1. We all missed it, in staff. And so that'll be coming to you for a future public hearing to amend that ordinance somehow to recognize the intermediary and probably suggest we create a registry. But
Okay.
How will that registry come together?
it'll, just like any other law, you're required to do this. And then, like now, the Commissioner of Revenue searches Airbnb, VRBO, newspapers, and if they see an ad and you're not on the registry, they'll let you know. And they'll let the zoning administrator know, and if you don't have a special use permit, then will handle that process at the same time.
Will we be able to would we be able to go the other direction and say to Airbnb, in our registry, there are these properties that book through you. Please confirm that the aggregate revenue you're kicking back to us.
Maybe. Yeah, if they're not required to provide us the detailed information, just a yes, no, maybe. They might. I don't
Because
know.
otherwise, you have no way of enforcing.
It's only the registry. Yeah. And so if somebody fills out the registry and says they're not with an intermediary, then we should have a check from them for their taxes.
Right, but if they say they're with an intermediary, we don't know if the intermediary's collected taxes. Whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess they'll have to,
But
but
at least we have to have a permit.
A zoning permit. Yeah.
all right.
All right, I think we're on to matters presented by the board.
I've got one. I'll try to be quick because I know it's getting late. So a number of factors came together, and I just thought that I would ask you all if you would want me to spend time on this. I don't want to do it unilaterally because it's a property we all know. So this is the Aileen plant over on Aileen Road. And so here are some things. I've had some complaints about traffic access on Aileen Road, both from the fodder stack and from 522. There's that crazy access off of 522. Separately, Mr. Sharp approached me and said that he's looking at a piece of land across from the Aileen plant, and wonders if a road across that property, which would go directly from 522 to Aileen Road, would solve access to the Aileen plant itself. And then second, improve safety. And then third, I've got one constituent who's now renting, or not renting, has one of the commercial condos at the back of the property. And much of the property, I think 30%, is without a roof. And increasingly I'm hearing from constituents who are thinking about different kind of low impact businesses where they need warehouse space. I know two in particular. And so my question to you all is, with all of that floating around, you have this underutilized facility, obviously privately owned. Not traffic problems, but traffic access and traffic safety problems going onto that road. And then some real interest in kind of warehouse type space, and that property obviously needs a lot of attention. My question is if you all would be comfortable if I talked with VDOT and with the regional commission, and I talked briefly about this with Gary. It seems that there might be grant money out there that could improve that whole place, and it's clearly an underutilized general commercial property where, frankly, much of it is an eyesore, and I just wonder if we would, as a board, have an interest in seeing if we could bring some outside grant funds to bear on the traffic issues and then also the site itself,
Revitalization.
that type of thing, yeah.
No, I have no problem with it, but I think VDOT would have to be the one to make the call of whether there'd be a
Right,
road
of
cut through
course,
there.
of course. Do you have anything you want to?
There used to be industrial access grant funding through VDOT. It's now economic access grant. It's shared money, so I'm not sure how that would work out, that you can put in roads. It's generally intended to put a road in for a business park sort of thing. So that may be an opportunity, and there might be,
Thank you.
some federal money that's flowed through with this latest ARPA through the state. The state got $4.3 billion. They put
It was a
$700 million in
formerly-
broadband, but there's still a lot left going.
It was
to
a formerly Brownsfield, so.
Yeah, right, and so we still deal with the well. So there could be some avenues where derelict structure funding is available. But I don't know private, public, who has to be involved. And so those are some things we could look into. I doubt you could just get 100% grant money to have something.
Right.
Somebody's gonna have to have skin in the game. And at least some options could be brought to the board. and partner with a private landowner who would have to bring something to the table, I would assume. But I have no idea what it would look like.
So I'm willing to, because, I mean, it's always bothered me. I mean, when I campaign over there and you see those residents living on either side of it, it's just a shame. It's just a shame. And,
It used to employ a lot of people.
In the courtroom, yes, ma'am.
I'd just like to say publicly that I'm very proud of Art Goff and the board for making this attempt to get a grant for a victim witness
yeah.
coordinator. I appreciate all the work that Art has done, and I know that you're all totally behind him, and it's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's an important thing.
We are in public comment period, if anybody would like to speak. We have one person on Zoom.
And she's a reporter.
Yes, so I think we're good on Zoom. You're not seeing anybody else,
So let
right?
me make sure I put up the instructions, so if she wants to raise her hand, she can. I'm sure she knows how. No, I don't see any.
Okay. All right. I'm not seeing anybody on Zoom or in the courtroom, so I'm going to close public comment. And that takes us to old business, refuse and recycling center, local use.
All right. The board has discussed methods through which it would be appropriate to restrict access to our refuse and recycling centers to only Rappahannock County citizens and select others, for example, those that may volunteer with our fire and rescue companies. At a recent meeting, you asked me to come back to you with a proposal. After considering the various options, I'm suggesting that we move forward with a program that uses a sticker to be applied to the exterior of the windshield, out of the view of the windshield, really on an opaque part on the outside on the lower driver's side corner. Shouldn't be in the way of anything else. And those stickers are pretty affordable. They would be all identical. You can get 6,000 for $1,200. Wouldn't need 6,000, but that just gives you an idea of how much they cost. And our staff at those centers, possibly supported during the initial rollout, would distribute those stickers to citizens who would be, through public media campaigns and signs on site, alerted that they need to bring ID and a proof of residency to one of the two centers to have their sticker applied to the vehicle. And so we know that many of our residents are not citizens.
Right.
So sensitive to the fact that they would be residents, so they could show a power bill or something like that, work out the details. And then in order to make that work, our staff needs to have confidence to know the addresses that are actually in the county to back check that. And we're in the process of updating all those addresses through the Next Generation 911 program. And I originally wrote that we would have to wait till the map books are ready, which will show all those addresses. But after talking with Lieutenant Jenkins and our GIS consultant, they recommended actually an alphabetical listing of addresses, which would be probably easier to use and available sooner than the map books. So I think that makes a lot of sense. It could even be provided on an electronic searchable device. So that's my recommendation. It's very simple. It would not preclude at some point in time in the future selling distinct stickers or hang tags or anything else to non-county residents if we wanted to do that. The difficulty there is that you would have to do it in a way that changes annually to, unless you're going to have a one-time forever fee, which I would not recommend. In a way to be able to charge an annual fee, you need to go through some process every year. I'd really rather the refuse centers not have to handle cash or anything like that, which is why I'm not recommending this to do that rolling out. And if we did do something like that, it would have to be through the treasurer's office or my office. Happy to take any of your questions.
When you said in passing that in the early phase of this, that our staff might have to be supported, how would you supplement that staffing?
Maintenance or people from my office possibly pulling some shifts at those facilities on heavy periods. Ramping up our staff where we have 2 staff
I see.
that are swap on or off and paying some overtime.
Okay. And had you thought about some other mechanism for distributing the stickers? Just getting the idea being not.
Well, I talked to the treasurer in the past, not recently. We strategized a number of different ways to do this. Of course, they have a lot of history in issuing stickers, right? It used to be the norm, and they were individually distinct stickers with a license registration number for the sticker. We just don't need that much detail and time. And we could send a certain number of stickers to everybody in the personal property tax bill or their blue form that comes from the Commissioner of Revenue. But those are people who have vehicles that are housed in the county on January 1.
Okay.
And so that's not everybody that we need to hit. And those opportunities to do that are not for a little while, if we want to do that. So we did something similar to this. I say we, our contractor in my last locality, did something similar to this, which wasn't too difficult.
Okay. Thanks a lot for putting it together.
We need to take any action on this?
Well, you wanted me to bring this forward. I can buy these stickers. I can do all these things without any action of the board. If the board doesn't like this, you've talked about it a while, and Mr. Fraser talked to his peer on the other side of the line, and then now's the time to say stop. Or if you have a particular deadline in mind, now's the time to let me know about.
I think we should go forward, especially before they build all those houses up there to the corner.
And most of those will probably have curbside collection, but
Right.
you never know. They're yard waste or whatever else that they're not supposed to bring anyway. This will help that.
How
So
many stickers? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
We would be, not only would we be advertising to our citizens that they will have to be prepared on this rolling period, probably 3-month period, to be prepared to show proof of residence, we will also be advertising to those people from Culpeper and Fauquier that on date certain, you will no longer be able to come here. And so they will have at least 3 months to plan what it is they're gonna do next. Like drive to Culpeper's landfill over on 522 if they want, or off 522, or hire curbside collection.
Right.
How many stickers do you anticipate needing?
Yeah, 3,000 maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, something like
3
that.
might be tight, so.
Yeah.
Is it increments at 3 to 6, that's what I'm to assume?
At least that's their
Right.
purchasing thresholds. If you did the math, well, you see the price, 24 cents, 20 cents, 18.5 cents. You get a little bit better bang for the buck. Might just buy the 12,000. We're gonna save more than $2,200, I'm quite confident.
Yes, I mean, I was always wondering what's the, cost benefit analysis and.
I don't think there's any way
it
for us to know
certainly,
that.
it certainly seems like we're gonna save money. So we're gonna give these out one time and then.
Yeah, so
and then-
the stickers are, have an 8mm laminate over the top, and I can print anything on it that I want. The sample I got has a Z. I was gonna bring it for show and tell, but it's on my desk. And they're reflective, so it would help when it's dark.
Yep.
But I think we'll probably put a black and white, it can be color, but I think black and white will last longer, and we'll do some sort of county seal or something like that.
Okay.
And I know we had talked too about making accommodations for volunteers from
Yeah,
other
so-
counties, so we would just,
I'm not envisioning having a different sticker for those
Okay.
individuals, so that they would have to show that somehow they're,
just wanted to make sure they'd all go in the same pot.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
rather than 2 classes.
Seems to make sense. I have a motion?
If you want to pass,
I don't think we need a motion.
Yeah.
Don't want,
Yeah.
okay.
so this is the sort of thing, stop me now.
Nope, we're not.
Go for it. We've
Go
been
for it.
waiting. That's great.
Yep. Route 211 study follow-up discussion.
I'll just yield the floor here in a second, but just say that we did get a response from Commissioner Britch. It is attached, and he basically said, supported what the district determined in their study.
Yeah, so I asked that this be added to the agenda, and that was, of course, prior to getting this response from the commissioner, which I know we all find probably disappointing that there isn't another recourse for this with VDOT, it would seem at this time. And of course, the other kind of kick is that there was a terrible accident at the intersection of 211 and 522 on Sunday, the 26th. And it was just a sort of accident that I felt lucky to do a quick head count and realize no one was killed. It was a very serious accident. Fortunately, ended up in Mr. Miller's front yard, for which I hated to see it. I hated to see it, and it was just the sort of thing that makes your heart drop. So I think we should just keep, nose to the grindstone on this. Push back to VDOT, document that accident, and just tell them, we are convinced that someone is going to get seriously hurt or killed on this stretch of road. And this has happened since you crafted this letter, and we are going to keep bringing this back to you because something needs to be done.
Did any board members request the variable message board be put up?
I did ask for it.
Okay. I was wondering if that was a coincidence after the
No,
accident.
I did that in advance, and it follows similar annual patterns that we've adopted before during leaf season, peak leaf season, and in light of the really terrible accident last weekend, and the stream of tourists that we expect for the next few weeks, I did drop Mark a note. Of course, they can't always guarantee it's available to us. It does have other uses. But I said, please, at any point in the next few weeks that you have that message board available and can put it through that stretch on 211, it would be very much appreciated. And I was delighted to see it in place on Saturday.
And I think we'd even said at least do that when we were talking about their study results. So,
Yeah,
well,
so
thanks for following up
So-
on that.
It's not the speed one, it's just the message, but it's not.
Right.
it
but-
says,
Yeah, it's
please slow down, or
keep your eyes
keep your eyes on the road, yes. So I think if everyone's in agreement, I would ask that staff reach back and document the accident and appeal the recent letter and just tell them we are going to keep requesting this change, and everything that happens affirms that a change is needed.
And I do have hopes the work that the RRC can do for us, if this grant is awarded, will give us more information and more data than VDOT necessarily has.
It's almost like a three-headed monster at this point. We've got the VDOT approach, we're trying
Speed
with the
poles.
variable speed displays, and then of course, with the RRC being able to work through that TAP grant as well.
I will tell you, somewhat coincidentally and unfortunately, not a good situation, but up in Fauquier County on 17, where 17 and 245, which is Old Tavern Road, intersect. It's a terrible intersection. And Wakefield School has now, I think, over 400 students. My children attend there. And on September 15th, there was a terrible wreck involving two students, not Wakefield students, but coming from a Wakefield event. And sort of on behalf of families in Rappahannock County who attend Wakefield School, I wrote a letter to Supervisor Trumbo, who represents the Scott District, which includes the Plains, and basically copied everyone that we copied on our own VDOT letter. And I saw Mr. Nesbitt the other day, and they're actually working on, for that intersection, I realize this is different than speed reduction, but for that intersection, they're actually working on a change. I mean, they're actively working on it because it's just been year after year with deaths and serious injuries. And so it gives me hope, maybe, if we keep the pressure on.
I mean, I think that's all you can do
Yeah,
is
yeah.
just keep appealing and document every time that there is an incident. because, I mean, that's what we should do. We can only, we can present the case. I wish that was something we had the authority to do, but we don't have authority to implement those changes. We really do count on VDOT to implement those changes, and we should do our very best to keep them informed of the situation.
Yeah.
Mr. Whitson, would you know if that section of 17 there at that intersection is in that increased fine area? 'Cause I was out there the other day and I remember seeing those increased fine signs, but I can't remember
Yeah, I don't know.
exactly where they are.
I don't know, and it's right there at Great Meadow. It's a terrible, when you come off of Old Tavern Road.
Yeah, when you're trying to
You gotta-
negotiate 17.
Yeah, run to the, and apparently what happened with these children is they pulled out, but somebody stopped in the median, so they stopped in the lane of traffic, and it was just awful. And so what their solution there, in talking with Mr. Nesbitt, what they're thinking they're going to do, it'll be a right-hand turn only. You'll have to go down some distance and basically do a U-turn to head south, which apparently is one way to remedy that. It's an inexpensive way.
You
So-
mentioned the additional fine area. That's another area we're trying to work with VDOT
Yeah.
and some of our village areas, which is their policy is in revision. Code change with the authority changing from the CTB to the commissioner, and they haven't updated the rules yet. So I keep asking every month, and the policy is still in review and not finalized. So as soon as that's done, it can be $200 extra, which will be a local revenue.
Great.
If we can't do speed cameras, that sounds good.
So I would just ask that, it's my motion to ask staff to reach back and once again appeal the results of our recent letter and document the accident on the 26th and continue to voice our very strong concerns that something really terrible is going to happen through that stretch of road.
Yep.
That's my motion.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
And if we need to send some additional letter, I'd be happy to work with you, Ms. Smith, on that.
Well,
It seems I've been
I
doing a
think
lot
I
of
was
that
just
for
empowered to do that, so
Yep.
maybe you
Yeah,
can work with me.
so I think and it would be all the same folks, and I would
Okay.
fold Mr. Nesbitt back into of course, keep him in the mix, and maybe something will happen with the local office as well.
Yeah.
Right. Washington Post Office updates.
Speaking of keeping the pressure on and hoping, right?
Yeah, I did ask this to be added
Do you
to the
want me to
agenda
tell you what I
too.
know?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so, not much. I did contact David Holberg, who is he's in Merrifield. And this was actually, I think before our last Board of Supervisors meeting, and came back with kind of a lengthy explanation of why it was still delayed. And I think the Rappahannock News reported that basically they said there'd been some screw up with electrical, et cetera. And so I wrote again, knowing that you had added this as an agenda item. And he basically said that they're really working diligently on the interior, and he could not at that time give me a date certain, but, and at the risk of putting yet another date out there that comes and goes, they said by November, but by November is now 27 days away. But I mean, most days they are in there working, and I understand like the consumer counter and all that stuff is in there. So I'm just going to continue to write to them and call them, and I basically told them that this whole thing is just absolutely unacceptable.
Well, and my concern and why I wanted particularly to put it on the agenda and talk about it tonight is talking to folks that work in the post offices. Christmas season and
Yeah.
online purchases and all that really starts to ramp up at the beginning of November. So it really needs to be a firm date for them.
Yeah.
I know that it's sort of like they keep moving the goalpost on us.
Right.
But with the seasonal difficulties layered on top of the already challenging situation, they have got to make November happen.
Yeah, and
So-
I'll do my part to stay on him, and he has been fairly responsive and actually calling me at home and telling me what he's learned. And I've been down there physically in the post office building a number of times just to make sure people are working, and can tell you that it's not every day that they're working, which surprises me. So all I can do is stay on them.
Not a very big crew either, is it?
No. Yeah, and it's a lesson learned, because I think had I been able to anticipate what was going to happen, I would have involved myself a lot more. And that's not to put the blame on other people, but the town government had really taken ownership of this, and they then over time kept getting different stories, and then by the time that I got involved on behalf of the county, everything was already kind of delayed badly. So at least we're darn close, and I will just keep checking with them every other day or so to see if they'll commit to a date certain. But
Is there any action from the board that would help you, do you think, or?
I don't think so. I mean, we've done the letter writing and all of that. We asked for the temporary building. We asked for, if not, stamp vending machine. We've tried everything. We did get the blue mail receptacle, which a lot of people have told me has made a big difference. So we got that, but they turned us down however many months ago it was for a temporary thing because of the inconvenience of having to relocate PO boxes and then relocate them again. And so I kind of doubt that any of those options are going to be more appealing to them now, given how close we are to having an actual building. But I think your point about Christmas, shipment traffic and all that is important, because if you look at that building, it's actually set up with a proper loading dock, unlike the Sperryville post office, which is pretty small. So definitely I would hope that they would want to utilize that facility for that purpose.
Mr. Whitson, the other part of this that would be interesting is what the project calls for as far as notification of Sperryville, notification of our citizens when this is going to change to their site.
Yeah,
How is that all going to work?
okay, good point.
Any other discussion?
I'll follow up on that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Moving on to allocation of funding to Sperryville Fire Department.
I requested this be on the agenda. It's another thing we've talked about for a couple of meetings. We did this last year as part of the CARES Act allocations. And I just really feel for the departments that, again, this year haven't been able to hold their fundraising activities. And in particular, there's two big ones for Sperryville, the 4th of July fireworks and the drawdown. And again, just being able to put those on from a planning perspective, it's a nightmare, because you might think you can have it when you set it up, and then something may happen before the date of the event. And that was indeed what happened with the drawdown. They were planning it and had to cancel. So they would like to receive an allocation similar to what they did last year for CARES. I know this doesn't fall under the ARPA guidelines, and I did request that either the Chief Burke or Larry Grove had offered to come out for the evening, but they both had conflicts, as it turned out. But I know that they rely on this money. They're a company that we rely on to keep our citizens safe, and I really believe we need to go ahead and allocate this money again to cover some of the critical capital needs that they would normally meet with these events.
I think it's absolutely a good thing to do. My only question, I said last time, and I don't know if it's something we would want to try to schedule tonight, but for me, it was super useful. And you're right. I mean, it's not strictly an ARPA discussion, but it's revenue replacement through kind of money that's stemmed from the COVID pandemic. And so I'm wondering if we couldn't have a standalone meeting so that we could hear from them what their actual lost revenue numbers are. I don't know if we have that data.
It's documented from last year in the attachment.
Do we have this year though, or
It would be the same because they didn't have it last year.
I'd be inclined to do it. I just want to make sure that we're looking at it in the context of other companies and other people who might be seeking money is my only point. I wonder if we could just do that sooner rather than later as a standalone meeting and discussion. and I don't mean to delay, but, for me, it's super helpful to have kind of a reconciliation of the different pools of money that we have available to us, who's seeking what, and then what we have left over. And, obviously the sewer authority was here today asking for a lot of money, of ARPA money. So I'd just like to see it in a broader context, but maybe we could do that sooner. That's how I'd prefer to approach it. And that way we could hear from other people as well. But I agree. I mean, we need to make up the difference if we can.
Point out in the narrative of this agenda item, it's my recommendation if the board wants to supplement the funding going to the fire and rescue companies, that you first utilize the fire services fund, which does have a fund balance of $137,000. Those are taxes that your citizens have paid with their fire levy that have not been needed over the past several years and have been held separately and tracked separately because you have to track them separately. And I would think that would be your first reserve to use for this sort of need, because it can't be used for non-fire and rescue.
So there's no other use for that, for those funds currently, and there's no downside to using those funds for this?
My thought is that you would want to use, in most situations, you would want to use the most restricted funds first, and then leave the most flexible funds for something else.
Yeah.
And so if you have these restricted funds available that can only be used for fire and rescue, you use them for fire and rescue, and these other CARES type funds can be used for anything.
Okay.
Whereas those dollars can't be used for anything.
And what is the dollars right now? How much?
Well, it's $137,726.19 after you appropriate the $76,000 that we didn't spend in 21 into 22 to finish paying Harris, which will probably happen in December during the public hearing. So you actually have that 137 plus the 76,000 right now.
I'd like to see too what the other companies, because we value all our fire and rescue squad. And I'd like to see what the other companies, what their downfall is. At the same, and just do it all at the same time.
So I can reach out and ask them to, some sort of consistent format, ask them to update the information like I put on the screen that Sperryville Fire provided last time, showing their incoming expenses over time. And I know this year they're doing some sort of gun raffle or something.
That's done.
And the
Not sure.
drawdown.
I don't know what a
progress.
drawdown is.
Drawdown is you buy a ticket and you try to win all the money.
Well, there's a dinner. There's a dinner event, I think, if I remember correctly. I've never won it, but I
I
think
came
people
close.
have.
I could have.
If you win it, you have to
Had a
donate it
proxy
back.
there and she made a bad decision.
Didn't win any guns either, but
So I would reach out to all of the presidents and chiefs and say, the board would like to hear from you on your.
but I think the documentation last year for CARES, the only two that we reimbursed were Sperryville and Amesville, correct?
That is correct. I extended the opportunity to all of them for that revenue replacement, and they're the only two that stated they needed it. I know, for example, Company 4 has been
Working hard.
doing all kinds of
Yep.
fundraising, so.
Well, I mean, I think that's great if your events fit, the paradigm, but if you have events that don't fit current events, it's not really fair to ask companies to just shift off their typical fundraisers. I have to say, I don't understand why we wouldn't accommodate companies that work so hard to keep their services going, that have had no issues with keeping volunteers on board, that have continued to supply a valuable service to the county. Why we wouldn't do our best to get them the money to help with their capital needs. They have some truck payments and things that they need to make, and these are the kinds of funds that they rely on to do those things.
I don't have to ask for anything. I was trying to provide a path for structure, but if you would rather just have them come before you and ask for a number that they say is what they need, that's fine too. I just need to know what I'm expected to do.
Yeah, I'd like to know what, I mean, you might be right, it might be an identical number. That makes sense, because they don't change the types of events. But I do feel, just to follow our practice from last year, and again, not to delay this too much, I mean, as soon as we can, I'd be happy to sit down and have that, and it could just be a fire company
Should be.
type work session discussion to see what their lost revenue numbers are and what they might need, and just do it all at once.
But I imagine there's other things that bodies can talk about if you're gonna get together.
Yeah,
And we do have a meeting on the 18th.
Well, I'd just like to see this done sooner than later.
for sure.
I put this on the agenda today because it didn't happen at the last meeting where we also talked about funding broadband. I brought this up. And I was, told it needed to be handled in a regularly scheduled board meeting. And so I put it on the agenda for a regularly scheduled board meeting, and now there's another delay.
no,
Well-
what I said was I thought we